Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Horns Report, where we talk about all things UT athletics, UT football specifically today. I'm your host, Billy Gates, and with me, as always, KXAN Sports Director Roger Wallace, and a special guest who, to UT fans, needs no introduction, but I'll give him one anyway. It's lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers on the Third Longhorn podcast on Texas football. I mean, you're doing a lot of stuff these days, Rod.
I appreciate it, man. I love talking Texas football, but I know we got some heated topics to dive into today.
Yeah, that's for sure. There's a lot to unpack from the game against UTEP this past Saturday. 27-10, Texas with the win. So, fellas, at least they won. But it didn't look that good from an offensive standpoint. We'll get to the defensive side in a little bit where things looked a lot better. But, Roger, let's start with you. I mean, just kind of what you're doing the radio broadcast with Craig Way. Like, what are you feeling as this kind of performance is unfolding?
Yeah, you kind of felt like it was a little bit of a snowball situation because I know what everyone's talking about, the passing game, and the fact that there were 10 straight incompletions, 9 to end the half, and you just kind of felt like with every miss, everything just kind of felt like it was building and building. And Rod, it just felt like Arch, he wanted to complete a pass so bad that might have worked against him, but it was surprising is the understatement to go that long without completing a pass.
I believe the stat is it was the longest streak of incompletions for a starting quarterback at Texas since at least 2000. There have been a lot of starting quarterbacks at Texas that have not hit a low like that with 10 straight incompletions. So I think for Arch, for me anyway, personally, I watched those games last year. I watched Mississippi State. I watched ULM. I watched them like 3 different times. I went back and dissected them, looked at different, situational football, red zone and third down and third and long, and him in the scramble drill, different areas. And that quarterback is almost unrecognizable. For what we are witnessing this season with Arch. And I think it's about confidence. At this point, I'm past the mechanics, and people are talking about, throwing motion and his, body being misaligned and the footwork, and I get all that. But there are plenty of quarterbacks around the country making plays with flawed mechanics, right? And he was making plays with those flawed mechanics last season. I'm watching him, and I don't see a lot of joy, and I get that. When you're not playing well, hard to produce that and generate that kind of joy. Mm-hmm. But also, I don't see the confidence. I don't see the swagger. I watch defense. I see a lot of swagger. I see a lot of guys playing with confidence on that side of the ball. On offense, I don't see it. And usually, it's infectious, and it comes from the starting quarterback. So, you got to get that confidence back. I think he's dealing with a crisis of confidence. If I was Texas, I might be looking for the best sports psychologist in the world right now to come on down to Austin, spend some time with my quarterback, because I think it's more mental and less physical.
Yeah, and Rod, you hit the nail on the head there. I think Sarkisian said basically what you said during this press conference. I can't remember if it was post-game or it was Monday. He said it in the past couple days where it's not a physical thing. Like, we had last week, we had the speculation about the injuries because he was grimacing when he threw the ball and all this stuff. The ESPN camera crew, they knew what they were doing, right? But he said the same thing. Like, it's between his ears. So like as you're watching this sort of unfold, Rod, I mean, just kind of what are you thinking along with Arch, being in, you're a college NFL football player. Like, when you're going through kind of struggles like that, like, what are you thinking as you're kind of seeing this guy struggle?
Yeah, I think he needs to get back to the basics, and this is where Sark can help him. And I think, obviously, I think Sark has dialed up some plays, and he's missed some throws, of course. I think how Sark can help him, you got to get back to easy completions. And there are some examples of it over the last, 2 weeks with Arch. Some easier completions. Get him in the screen game, the quick game, straight drop back, quick game works really well for him. I think, and even Sark said it, sometimes we got to run him. And to that point, guys, in that second half versus UTEP, you ran Arch, I believe, 4 designed runs. And you've heard this, Roger. You've heard Sark say this. Sark actually has multiple times said, we don't major in quarterback run game. He almost mocks the quarterback run game. We don't major in it. I went back and looked at it. Those 7 design runs for Arch, it was 8 total because Matthew Caldwell had one at the end of the game. But those 7 design runs, most for a starting quarterback for Steve Sarkisian since at least 2015. So either he was frustrated or he was desperate. And I don't know which one.
We asked him about that on the radio on the post-game show, and he admitted, he said, hey, I had to get him going maybe just to get him out there, have him run around. And to your point, he makes a nice run, takes a hit, he's fired up. There's where the joy comes in, but just maybe to unlock something different. You talked about the sports psychologist and that last name Manning. I mean, Uncle Eli, nobody went through what he went through in a much bigger fishbowl and a much bigger microscope than being the quarterback of the New York Giants. But I wonder seriously if those guys, if Eli and Peyton, if they've said, you know what, we're here for you, but I'm not going to be anything more than Uncle Peyton and Uncle Eli, because there is kind of a fine line. But I got to ask you, Rod, because I know to this day one of your closest friends came in with a name on the back of his jersey. We're talking about Chris Sims, and everybody had the expectations, and he had the rocket arm, and he had the blonde hair. Now, he was a New Jersey guy, came in a little brasher than Arch did, but still, it's hard to quantify what that means coming in with that last name.
And the pressure, right? I mean, you can make the argument that no quarterback in the history of college football had more pressure on them and higher expectations for them than Arch did going into this season. And I remember Chris Sims was a really good player. I mean, drafted in the 4th round, won 11 games, multiple times here at Texas. He was one of the best quarterbacks in the history of Texas football, but ultimately it does seem like it is a rite of passage at Texas. And I hope Arch understood that. So hope when he talked to Colt and talked to Quinn and all those other guys, that it's almost a rite of passage to get booed at Texas as a starting quarterback, to have people question whether you should be the starter and maybe they should give the number 2 guy a shot. I'm online right now, and yes, there are Longhorn fans having that conversation about Arch. And I remember Ty Dodge telling me once, he was like, "Oh no, you're not the starting quarterback at Texas until you get booed." And I can remember now recently, Sam Ehlinger had his moment. He got booed. Quinn got booed. So at this point for Arch, yes, I think the fans, might have been just showing dissatisfaction with the product overall. But I think obviously Arch is putting way too much pressure on himself.
One thing that is interesting to me, Rod, is that usually the hype comes from closer to Austin than outside. It's been the opposite here.
Yes.
The hype has come from outside with guys that may not even have watched, let alone any practice, obviously, or anything like that, but even just bits and pieces of the 2 games he started. And yet it was just absurd what the expectations were. The Heisman polls, the All-American honors, and I think Sporting News had him first-team All-American. What are we doing here? And then, of course, you build him up to knock him down. The voice of the Southeastern Conference, the prime example in Paul Feinbaum.
He had a man crush.
Oh, man, no kidding. But yeah, no, Roger, the whole Sporting News thing, I know we talked about that here. We were just kind of looking at each other, just puzzled. But anyway, some numbers on Manning, like we've been saying, not great. 11 of 25, 114 yards. The touchdown to Wingo at the end of the game was a nice play. That was kind of a good thing to end on. Threw the pick, a bad pick. I mean, it's just one of those things where he kind of had one against San Jose State where he hit a guy in his face, threw it up for grabs.
Yeah.
This pick was kind of similar. Threw it up in the air to
It was 4th down.
Yeah, it was 4th down. It was 4th down.
He had to get rid of it.
Laid across the middle.
That's fine. Yeah. But same kind of deal. 9 rushes for 51 yards, 2 touchdowns. So, I mean, one of those was that bootleg to get him in the end zone, and then kind of that 5-yard scramble up the middle where the defenders sort of vacated that middle area. He was able to get in the end zone. Before we get into something I want to talk about with the running backs and not scoring touchdowns yet, let's hear from Steve Sarkisian about Arch's struggles and how he's sort of approaching how to deal with them. So here's Coach Sarkisian.
I think some of this is really good. Here's a guy who's had an awesome life. He's the way he's grown up, where he played, the school he went to, the people he's been surrounded by. But I think you learn a lot about yourself through adversity and overcoming adversity and getting on the other side of adversity. And so to have some of this adversity that he has right now, and when he gets on the other side of it, I think all of this is going to serve not only well for him, but well for us as a team. And so love the challenge for him, love the challenge for us. And he's a strong-minded guy. He's got great work ethic, great poise, great composure. He's an awesome teammate, and so I love the end of the movie for him when he gets on the other side of this. So looking forward to it.
Interesting perspective, but then again, if you think about it, makes total sense, right? You'd rather have him struggle now than struggle against Florida that struggle against Vanderbilt. So it is one of those things where, like, yeah, it looks bad now, but like he was saying, the end of the movie, theoretically should be pretty good.
That is the hope.
Right. Yeah.
No, I know, because these are growing pains. The hope, we all knew he was going to have growing pains.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
I think no one really expected him to have regression. I think after the Ohio State game, the expectation was Arch was going to get better week to week, and if that was the case, that was a great place to start, especially that fourth quarter versus Ohio State. And I thought San Jose State, actually, I think he showed a lot of promise and a lot of improvement in that San Jose State game, and then there was regression in the UTEP game. So the concern now is that, okay, so if we're not getting better week to week, and you're getting inconsistency, right, and you don't have really a baseline of consistency to count on, then you don't know what Arch you're going to get from week to week. Are you going to get the first 3 quarters of Ohio State Arch? You're going to get San Jose State Arch? You're going to get UTEP Arch? You don't really know, and that's the concern. That's why it's great to have a defense that is playing at a really high level and special teams that is playing at a really high level. So 2 of your 3 phases of the game right now are, in my opinion, are doing really well and on the right path. It's just offensively right now, you are technically one of, if not the worst offense in the SEC right now. You're in that category.
Adds a little more to this Sam Houston State game that everyone looked at the schedule and, to wrap up this not only 3-game homestand, but the non-conference. And that's for what you just said, Rod. And I think there is some value no matter who he's throwing against. If he can get a little confidence, you would hate for him to go into the bye week and head to Florida with the kind of feelings in his head right now. So, to your point, and here's the odd number. I know, Bill, you talked about no running back has a touchdown. Arch has been on every touchdown because it's either been a touchdown pass or an Arch touchdown run so far, but it's only 9 touchdowns in 3 ball games.
He might be your leading rusher, too.
It's close.
Right?
Yeah.
It's
I don't have the season stats in front of me.
Because of the injuries and everything, right?
Yeah. And that's kind of where I wanted to go next, fellas. We heard today that there's no CJ Baxter for the Sam Houston game this Saturday night. He's got a hamstring injury that happened to him the first play of the UTEP game, which, that changes a game plan, right? I mean, if you don't have your lead back there to shoulder some of the offensive load for a guy like Arch Manning, maybe that gets in your head a little bit. But, Steve Sarkisian was saying in this press conference Monday, he didn't want to make excuses, but that kind of thing, messes stuff up when you're counting on, your lead back taking those carries, getting his 15, 20 touches a game. Not there anymore.
And
however,
you didn't have Trey Wisner.
Right. No Trey Wisner.
No DeAndre Moore.
No Emmett Mosley.
So, no Emmett Mosley yet. Hopefully we'll see him on the field because he's a great football player. And like we had been mentioning earlier, no running backs have touchdowns yet. 3 games into the season. Looking to get somebody in the end zone against the Bearcats, I would imagine. James Simon, the true freshman, led the Longhorns with 67 rushing yards on 17 attempts yesterday. That was a really cool kind of opening act for him. I mean, Rod, just like being a true freshman in anything is hard, but like, gosh, when you're coming in and you're making your debut like that, that's got to be a pretty cool thing to see.
Yeah, and you're going to need these running backs. Unfortunately, I wish I could knock on some wood here, but the last couple of years, you've been hit hard by the injury bug at running back, unfortunately. And last year, it ended up being a blessing in disguise because you found Trey Wisner, right, and found out how dependable and trustworthy he was, and be great to get him back. I think he does change the complexion of the offense, guys. Gives you someone you can trust as a pass receiver and also a runner out of the backfield. I'm not sure they know if these young backs can be both, but I'm with you. James Simon, a lot to be optimistic about with him. They got to figure out who their staple of running backs is going to be here. And unfortunately, I think you need to expedite the development of these young guys because you don't know what the injury situation is going to be for Wisner and for CJ Baxter. And a hamstring injury, those things linger, guys, unfortunately. All season long, probably.
Yeah, and you're right, by the way, Arch, 112 yards to 110 for C.J. Baxter.
Wow. Who would have took that bet?
Yeah.
The first 3
Goodness
It would be
gracious.
different if Wisner had played because he had over 80 against Ohio State.
Yeah,
But
that's true.
because he's out. But
Wow.
and because everything funnels to Arch, and there's so many different facets to this offense, and they ran for 166 against Ohio State, but it didn't feel like they had that running game established where they could really lean on it, and they didn't pop any big ones. And one thing about last year's team, Rod, is they hit the home run, both in the pass game and in the run game, and boy, that can make up for a lot of things. Because Sark's the first to say, "Hey, it's hard to go 12 plays. It's hard to drive the field. You know, if you have a defense that can wait for the offense to make a mistake, you got a great shot." Home runs too out of the run game.
Yeah, this isn't the Iowa Hawkeyes offense, right? like you want to get the ball in the end zone like as fast as you can. Interesting, you bring up the big playability, Roger. There were two rushers from the UTEP game who tied for the longest rush of the day. They were both quarterbacks. They were Arch Manning and Matthew Caldwell. Each had 14-yard rushes. Matthew Caldwell's only run 14-yard game. So obviously that's got to change if you want to get those explosive plays up to the 20% threshold that Sarkisian's always been talking about this season. So, I mean, got to get something from the run game, right? I mean, that especially when we get into SEC play, when you get on the road too, you got to run and you got to play defense. And thankfully for the Longhorns, they've got the defense side taken care of.
They do it, but I think those things are connected, guys. When you decide you're going to be a defensive-led football team, which it seems like right now that's how Texas is going to win games, right? By leaning on that defense. Then that means you got to win the hidden yardage battle on special teams. Texas can do that, right? They got Boom Meester. I call him Boom Meester because the kicks are booming. All right,
Boom Meester.
Boom Meester.
You got to say it in like Australian accent.
Right. But he's been great. I think Shipley's going to be really good for you. Hadn't had a ton of opportunities. Ryan Niblett showed you can get explosives. We just talked about explosive plays. You can get those in the return game. So Ryan Niblett looked really good there. And then you're talking about a defense that if they can get better week to week, they can be one of the best defenses in the country. And by the way, your defense is playing well now. Guys, just like offense, you're most hyped and you're arguably your best player, not even starting slow. Not even really been a factor early on in the season. Colin Simmons didn't even have a stat, I don't think, in the last game.
That was weird.
I don't think he registered a stat. So that guy's going to heat up too. The defense is going to get better, but that's how you're going to have to win games, and you're going to need your running game to do so, to be able to control the game and to be able to limit the mistakes, right? Limit the exposure of your offense and extend drives, because you don't want to put Arch out there if he's not ready developmentally. You don't want to put him out there in SEC play and expose him by throwing the ball way too much. You want to limit the amount of risk in your offense. The way you do that is run the football. That's how you help your defense. So the run game and the defense, they're going to be connected this year, and I think Texas is going to need them both to win an SEC play.
Yeah, I think we get a little numb to this defense when you think about what they've done. I mean, it was a 58-plus minutes before UTEP got into the end zone. They scored in the last 2 minutes. San Jose State 1 touchdown. Ohio State 14 points.
Crossed the 50 twice. I
think.
Yeah.
So but nobody wants to hear about the defense unless they've got a good offense to talk about. Everybody gets worked up with points. Yep. I contend, Rod, if they lose to Ohio State 34-27, there was a much different feeling about this Texas team coming out of Columbus because of the fact that, it was a 7-point loss, but you had positives in other areas, and maybe you're going, what's up with the defense? But to your point, defense, they don't have the sacks that they had, and that's predicated a lot on what the offense do. Sark said their average is like 1.8 second of getting the pass off. It's hard to get to a guy in 1.8 seconds and things like that. But the other thing that's been impressive to me is all the new interior defensive players that have come from other schools, and they've had a lot of great defensive tackles the last few years, and those guys have held up pretty well so far.
I think actually one of the pleasant surprises so far has been the interior D-line, because you had Murad Watson. I think he's leading the team in sacks. Cobra Vaughn's been great. Travis Shaw has stepped up and played well. Alex January hadn't been available, but I loved what I saw from him in that Ohio State game. So you're actually now deeper at D-tackle than we anticipated, and I think the linebackers are playing really well. And Ty Anthony Smith is playing at a really high level. Leon Lafau feels like he's trying to outplay Anthony Hill, right? He's making plays at a really high level too, and he's making splash plays and havoc plays out there. So between those three guys at linebacker, I think and then you got Michael Taff. I think he's leading the team in tackles right now. Jelani McDonald had a great game last game, and he had 3 tackles, I think, on 3 consecutive plays, and end up getting the interception. Between him, I think Derek Williams, I think you got 3 starting safeties. So the spine of your defense, the central nervous system of it, right up the gut of it, is probably your strength right now. And the edges haven't even heated up yet. What we thought would be the most impactful position on defense hasn't heated up yet, and I think they're going to get better. And then the corners, right? Grayson Littleton and Jalen Gilbo, I think those guys are going to get better as they get challenged a little bit more too. So I think this defense has a tremendous upside.
Well, we've heard Steve Sarkisian talk about Grayson Littleton all year long, and man, he's really shown that true freshman, he could play. Like he is. And Sark today, Monday, when we were taping this, he said that the reason why Littleton is doing so well is all he cares about is football. Like the dude eats, sleeps, and breathes football. And for a true freshman going off to college for the first time, being on your own for the first time around everything that goes with being in college, we've all been there, fellas, right?
Yeah.
That's a tough thing to do. That's a tough thing to do. So I mean, that's good on him. Some quick defensive numbers from the UTEP game: 50 yards allowed rushing. Again, that's kind of on par to what they've done.
And 30 on one play.
Yeah, and 30 came on one play. 259 total yards. Malachi Nelson got loose a little bit in the fourth quarter, throwing the ball. He ends up with 209 yards. No touchdowns, though. He threw 2 picks. So let's see, 2.2 yards per rush for UTEP. So like you're against the rush. Granted, it is against UTEP, and they want to throw the ball anyway. You're right where you want to be defensively, holding teams to 2-ish yards a carry. So now this defense, it's been as advertised, and you talk about the interior defensive line. Half of the portal commitments, I think there were 10 total. It might be more than half. Like I think it's 5 or 6 of them were interior defensive linemen. So clear strategy for Sarkisian to kind of fill that gap where, I mean, they're just sending guys to the NFL left and right if you're a defensive tackle. So like that does wonders for recruiting, right?
You got
like if you want to be a
straight
D tackle, come on over to Texas.
I believe
right?
Texas is the only school with 3 straight years of having multiple D tackles drafted. I mean, think about that. You get going from the Coburn, Ojimo to the, obviously now to the Alfred Collins and then Vernon Broughton. Then, so it is a phenomenal streak. And I am with you. I think Texas is now starting to develop a reputation. And I didn't bring up Hero Canoe, who, guys, honestly, I think he's playing more than any other D tackles. I believe snap-wise, if you look at it, I won't say Hero Canoe is playing, because he's your D tackle on those NASCAR packages as well. So that's a guy I don't think we talked enough about in the offseason, who right now is playing, I think, more snaps than any of those D tackles they brought in.
What a story there. He's helping win Ohio State a national title, beating Texas along the way, and then his first game he has to line up against Ohio State. As an old DB, Rod, can you give us a little insight on? It just doesn't seem like you can just insert these guys and say, all right, stop the run, get a little pressure up the middle. I mean, there's more that goes into that dance. How impressive is it that you've had it's one thing to have young guys, but these guys all learned in other systems and then come here and have to play their system. How impressive is that for these guys in the interior of the defense?
Yeah, I got to give a lot of credit to Coach Baker. I mean, he's done a great job with these D linemen, and I almost feel like they have a different mentality than when Bo Davis was coaching the guys. It seems like now they want to create more havoc, so they stop the run on the way to getting to the quarterback. I think your pass rushing ability of your D tackles has improved. And that is, to me, if you can get pass rushing ability with the ability to stop the run on early downs and guys who can create and generate pressure later on passing downs, then you got the best of worlds. And I think you got multiple D tackles who can do that for you. Murad Watson, actually, like I said, leading the team right now in sacks, I believe, 1.5. I don't think anybody saw that coming from the D tackle position. Like I said, that's because your edges has not heated up yet. So I do think that's a strength for you now.
That's a guy that could be around a while.
Sure.
He's played 1 year at Syracuse. Now, you never know.
Portal's
the portal, right?
Who knows, right?
But Texas doesn't lose a lot of guys.
That's right.
They don't lose a lot of key contributors to the portal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he's just 1 year, so theoretically they could have him for another season after this.
He could stick around, develop, and be another, Byron Murphy, Devondre Sweat could be one of those guys. Yeah. Who knows? Quick defensive stats from the UTEP game. Leonga Lafau leading the way, 7 tackles. We talked about him earlier. That guy is going to play his way into a Sunday job. Like he has been really, really good. He hit a TFL. Jelani McDonald, Michael Taff, each with 6 tackles. Taff with 4 solo tackles. You kind of expect that out of a senior safety who's been around the program for almost a decade. Nah, he hasn't been around that long.
He's an OG now. He's an old man.
He's an OG guy. He's a 5 and 7 guy. I know that's not really the distinction you want, but and then we talk about Hero Canoe. 3 of his tackles, 2 of them were for losses.
Wow.
He had a pair of quarterback hurries, and the sack Zena Umeozulu. Yeah. I was gonna get there. Thanks, Rod. Appreciate you, buddy. And then Hero Canoe with the sack too. So. probably want to get more quarterback pressures out of that defense. You think, fellas? I mean, I don't know. Kind of seems like they need to generate a little bit more to help that secondary out. To really kind of lock in. What do you guys think?
I think it's a complimentary football thing.
Sure,
You're right about that. They do need to, and I think that's part of players like Colin Simmons stepping up and playing at a really high level. So they need to make more of those splash plays. But when the offense is scoring a lot of points, it puts a lot of pressure on the opposing offense to be able to keep up. And how do they keep up usually? They got to throw the football. So it's actually a little bit of complimentary football in there, too, that the offense isn't doing their part to score enough points. Remember last year, you were scoring a lot of points offensively. You score a lot of points. They feel like, oh, man, we got to keep up. Otherwise, we're going to get blown out here in the next quarter. And then they get a little bit more desperate. They start to throw the football. And then you capitalize and maximize on that desperation by getting splash plays. So I think that's part of it, too. Not only putting them in predictable passing situations, but the offense doing their part in the complementary football element.
Well, and obviously, offensive coordinators know what at least the strength we thought coming in was going to be the edge situation. So they're going to put their quarterback in positions where they don't have to sit back there and pat the ball 2 or 3 times, or they know the pressure's coming. But still, you got to find pressure. Maybe you're not going to get 31 sacks. Or whatever number it was last year was 31 turnovers, but the total number of sacks. But you got to be somewhere. Yeah, you got to be somewhere where you're heating up the quarterback and making them. And a lot of times, Rod, you can get to the quarterback, not sack him, but affect him.
Yeah, they started slow last year, too. Remember, guys? We were complaining about this last year. They started slow, and then they just came on like gangbusters at the end of the season. A lot of it was due to like Trey Moore. Remember, he had like 6 sacks in like the last like 8 games or something. So I think they come. I've been told by edges like Alex Okafor, guys like Brian Roberson tell me they come. These things they kind of come in bunches. Like once you start getting them, it's kind of a snowball effect. So I feel like that'll happen with this defense as well. That there's the sacks and the splash plays, they'll come as long as they keep creating the pressure.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll end here real quick. Sam Houston State's coming up. Last non-conference game for the Longhorns before they start on their road odyssey for 6 weeks. They've got a bye week before they start with Florida, but coming up this Saturday, night game at DKR, 7 p.m. against the Bearcats from over in Huntsville. Rod, let's start with you real quick. I mean, what makes... For you, what makes this game a success?
The passing game for Texas.
Sure.
Okay, I brought some. Now you don't bring my notes to things like this, but I wanted to get the stats right.
Mr. Handwritten.
Yes, I'm old school. Hey kids, I'm old school. I brought my notes right there. All right. So this is where the Sam Houston pass defense is as of right now. 133rd in passing defense, like just passing yards allowed. 129th in passing attempts defended. 115th in passer rating allowed. 131st in passing touchdowns allowed. 108th in yards per attempt allowed. 115th in completion percentage allowed. 132nd in completions allowed. They've allowed 7 completions of 30-plus yards. Only 8 teams have allowed more. They've allowed 5 completions of 40-plus yards. Gentlemen, nobody in college football has allowed more 40-plus yard completions than they have. And if you look at 20-plus yard passes allowed, they are 119th in 20-plus passes allowed, 128th in 10-plus yard passes allowed. And if you look at sacks allowed, 130th in sacks allowed, 124th in tackles for loss allowed. So my point is...
they can run the ball.
Yeah. So anyway, in terms of their pass defense is bad. They got a lot of areas, right? They're problematic for Sam Houston, but their pass defense is one of the worst in college football. So this is the ultimate slump buster. If Arch Manning and the Texas passing offense can't get on track versus Sam Houston State, okay, then I will press the panic button with all of you. I will smash it to smithereens, and then I will officially say it's time to panic, and this is a crisis for the Texas offense if they cannot find their groove, at least in the passing game, versus Sam Houston.
Roger, your thoughts?
Well, my thought was what I said earlier. Suddenly there's a little more intrigue in this game. To Rod's point, you got to get this passing game unlocked, and I don't think you can go, okay, if they do, that doesn't mean anything because it's Sam Houston. I think quite the opposite. It does mean something because we're pretty sure that this is going to be or has the potential to be a good team. So I don't think it would be a one-off if Arch found a little confidence, found a little rhythm. I think we all think he's capable of doing that beyond a Sam Houston State. But yeah, this has got to be a dynamic offensive game, I think, for everybody to feel good going into that bye week and heading into take on a Florida team that, they got their own issues. They threw 5 completions to LSU on Saturday night.
DJ had a rough time out there.
I'll take our quarterback. That's
another guy that was hyped up.
I'll take Arch.
Another thing. Boy, all
That
right.
hype train had DJ in another seat.
You're right. He was a Heisman favorite too, I think. Ugh.
Oh man, all these preseason Heisman favorites just headed the wrong way.
Yeah.
All righty, we'll end it there. Saturday night, 7 p.m. DKR. The Longhorns take on Sam Houston State in their last non-conference game, and then they'll get a bye before opening SEC play with the Florida Gators at the Swamp. Gentlemen, we could do this all day, but we all have busy schedules, so we got to end it here. A big thanks to Rod Babers for joining us today, and for Roger Wallace, I'm Billy Gates, and we'll talk to you again very soon.